A little delay with our PowerPoint. I'm going to try to run it from um, this version that I have. So just bear with me a little bit, but we'll get started here with our, um, what time is it? 2 o'clock, our 2 o'clock presentation. And I'd like to welcome you all to the Echo Glen and Unkitawa Partnership and Rebuilding Services. We'd like to introduce to you Honey Jo Herman, who's the program coordinator of DCYF's Echo Glen Children's Center, Jeremy Garrettson, who is a reentry program director. For this session, we'll have our chat managers collecting your questions for question and answers at the end. And are we, honey, there you are. I was like, I saw you on here, but then you disappeared. Okay, you ready to go? And I'll share my screen the way I have it, and then if it's okay, I'll just kind of scroll down.
You're totally good. I did send you a link to it too that might play like a slideshow. So just let me know. I'm totally flexible though.
Okay, is Jeremy here too?
It is we spoke about an hour ago and I was expecting him to be on at this time. Is he not logged in yet? I can go ahead and start until he logs in.
I'm here.
Oh,
Oh, I see.
perfect.
Can you guys see me and hear me?
We can
Yes,
see
sir.
you. We only know you by iPhone. So good, we know you're here. Thank you. All right, and while you want to maybe introduce and then I'll get your slide up.
Well, yeah, so my name is Honey Jo Herman. I am the program coordinator here at Echo Glen. I've been here for about 2 years. Previous to this, I was a contractual service provider at Green Hill for 4 years and working with incarcerated and doing youth violence prevention for about the last 16. I come into this role with a big heart for serving our young people, and specifically in this role, I am charged with helping to support the volunteer and contracted programs here on campus, and that is to include spiritual and religious programs as well. So yeah, super happy to be here and excited to present, and I will turn it over to Jeremy.
Just so you know, he says he lost audio. So Miss Honey,
Oh,
what's going on there?
no problem, no problem. So I think today, oh gosh, let's see. I think today we were just coming to really present about sort of the journey of our partnership between myself representing Echo Glen and Jeremy and his role, and kind of how we've worked together to reestablish services here on campus for our young people. And sort of what is it about us working together that has been successful, and kind of where the future is hoping to take us. There is a good amount of, is Jeremy able to get connection yet or no?
I don't, he just put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm here, you guys, and I apologize.
You're good.
I'm having difficulty getting the audio. I can hear bits and pieces of what Honey is saying. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm on an iPhone. I'm down here in Arizona. I don't think I got very good reception. My apologies, but I'll do my best.
Okay, you can go ahead and start the slideshow. Thank you.
Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, you can go over one more, and I think this is yeah, Jeremy's section.
Okay, thank you. And again, my apologies for the
You're
audio.
good.
I'd like to start out with saying, Aba Niakit Nini Ase no Jeremy Garrison. Hanono Enino. Aho Chichi no o at what to say no. Said hello and good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Garrison from the Northern Arapaho Nation. I would like to thank you for inviting me to this great meeting. That's the proper way to introduce myself. So thank you again for allowing me to be here. And as was already said, I'm the reentry director over at Unkitawa, and part of my is to help provide ceremonial and cultural services to the facilities across the state, one of them being Echo Glen, which I'm very honored to do so. For those of you that may be unfamiliar with our organization at this point, say Unkitawa is an indigenous nonprofit. We're based over in Kent, but we're not geographically bound. Like a lot of other organizations have like a region that they serve. We serve the people wherever the people need served. It's just that the office is in Kent. It's an organization that's comprised up of multiple different tribal members from multiple different tribal nations. But the original founding members were Lakota. So of course, that's where the word comes from, is, you know, their meanings and their cultures. But it's a beautiful word. Unkitawa means ours, yours, and mine. And what it is it embodies the concept of what belongs to one belongs to all, so that we're all equally responsible. And that's how we push forward out here into our communities and into the world, to ensure that we are all looking after each other, you know, collectively and responsibly. So I think that kind of covers that slideshow there, or that slide. But now again, I'm traveling, so I have not had the opportunity to really go over these yet. So, but my counterpart, Honey Herman, is awesome. She is the go-to, get it all done. And I'm very grateful to have a counterpart such as herself over there at Echo Glen to work with. So as you see here, it lets you know that, you know, we provide community-based programs. The organization itself has multiple programs. Myself, I'm just over in the reentry portion. Well, I say that like that's all I do. I'm dragged into everything. You know, they got multiple departments and they're like, hey, Jeremy, come over here and do this. And that's just, it's what you do, you know. But there's a wonderful veterans program that looks after our indigenous veterans. We have a women's wellness program that is, you know, catered to more so to our female relatives and ran by all women and catered to women. And then there's an overall wellness program that, you know, is there for everybody. There's a youth program that we run to where we have internships. There's 2 of them going. One of them is more so catered towards male juveniles and interns, ranging anywhere from 12 to 28 years old is what we've got there. And it's focused on the youth that are affected by gun violence. So it's kind of my focused group with that is, you know, people that are either involved in gangs or at risk of being involved in gangs, or have had a good general amount of exposure to that, so that we give them other things in the community to do. You know, we try to teach them about themselves and about their culture, so that they can feed that part of themselves with culture, rather than, you know, the guns, the drugs, the nonsense. You know? And there's another intern programship that is, I will say it is mostly women, but it's not prohibited that a man is involved in that. But it is a traditional medicine program, where we've got some elders and some people that come in and they teach the medicines, you know, and they take the youth out and find them, show them how to locate it, how to traditionally and properly harvest it, and how to best utilize that, and how to make salves and make different things with them. So there's always things going on in the community with the organization. Myself, just to back it up a little bit again, you know, reason I'm being here, one is the work that we do in Echo Glen. You know, we do work across DCYF with both Green Hill School and Echo Glen, to where, you know, we come in, provide cultural classes, help organize the powwows every year at Green Hill. And we're looking to ramp things up over at Echo Glen now that we've got, like I said, the wonderful counterparts that we have there. So we're looking to get things leveled out, and I won't say equal as other places, but I kind of want to go and do more. You know, I'd like to first ensure that they have all of the things that everyone else in any of these other places has, and then figure out how can we do more? You know, how can we bring more to these youth? Because here's the thing, you guys, that I don't know if Honey heard or told you about, or what else you may know of Unkitawa, but my main thing that keeps me busy during the day and during the week and sometimes during the night is that I manage the contract for the Washington Department of Corrections for all Native American services as well. So I cover all of the prison system in the state. And that's why I'm also so passionate about being able to help at Echo Glen and Green Hill, is because I don't want to see these youth in the prison system. I want them to come and bump into me in the yard or at a ceremony in one of these bigger facilities. You know, the plan is to stop that pipeline. The plan is to teach them the things that they need to know in the phase of life that they're in now, so they don't have to go to those places and learn it in a different manner. You know, so that's in a nutshell. There it is. You got me. That's what I do. That's who I am. So like, you got another picture there. That's a picture of, I went into Green Hill and taught the boys how to make a drum. And that particular drum, actually, let me tell you guys this, if you got time to amuse me and give me a moment to tell a little story around that drum. This particular drum had many hands on it. So that frame was actually made by some incarcerated guys in DOC. We took the frame from there. Another member of the community donated the hides. We took the hides, and then we went into Green Hill with the frame that was made from the men, with the hide that was donated from the community, and taught these boys how to make the drum, but not just for the purpose of a learning day, but for the purpose of a gifting and a giving. When they finished making that drum, I drove down to Oakland, and I met up with some guys down there from the American Indian movement. It's called AIM West, if you guys are familiar. And we linked up with them, and I donated the drum to them for a youth group that they were currently starting a drum practice with in Oakland. And the group that they were working with was also people at risk of being exposed to gangs, involved in gangs, or currently already involved that they were trying to steer back away. So the amount of hands and medicine that went into that drum that is still being used today with the youth down in Oakland is a beautiful thing. So that's just one of the things that we're doing to try to bring change, you know, from a youth group to a youth group. And they all knew where it was going, and the boys down in Oakland know where it came from. And it was just a very beautiful thing to be involved in. So, what else you got there? Yep. That's more of the experience there. Oh, that's me. It looks like my braids were even a little thicker back then, but we were getting it done. Yep. That's, again, some of the youth down at Green Hill School that we were taking the time with, and not just given, you know, again, not just given the lesson of making a drum, but given the lesson of giving, you know, which is key to our culture. You know, it's always about giving and gifting. You know, the richest man isn't the one who holds the most, it's the one who gives the most, you know. And these are things I'm trying to teach the youth, you know, because these guys, unfortunately, today's society, it's all about how much you got, how much you hold as a status quo, you know. Trying to, one thing among many is to try to teach that lesson that it's backwards. Yeah. So, anyway, what else you got? Yep, awesome. Here we go. This is, you can see I'm in the picture, so I was a part of this day, but this was before my time of actually being involved in the contract with Echo Glen. I was just more volunteer, and again, like I said, all the programs at Unkitawa, they want some help. They're like, hey, Jeremy, come here, you know. So this day it was, you know, hey, Jeremy, we're gonna get ceremony started in Echo Glen. So I went out, I harvested willow, and then I went and, gathered the elders and the rocks and brought them in. And me and a couple of other gentlemen from Unkitawa, along with some of the youth from Echo Glen, we taught them how to construct an inipi, step one to step done, so they actually had the opportunity to not just partake in ceremony, but to be instrumental in the development and the creation of the inipi, so that when they utilize that and they go into it, it means more, giving them that little bit of pride and ownership, if you will, Yep, and that's another day of that same day. We're out there, as you see, there's some youth involved, and it's always a good time and a good day when you can get something going and they're actually excited about helping. I know y'all know that. Like my kids, I ask them for some help, it ain't happening. They're like, oh yeah. These youth, they were excellent. It was such a good day. Very happy to be helping and very grateful to be a part of it. And this is the same situation, just different location. This is back at Green Hill School, where, again, I harvested the willows and brought them in and taught these boys how to get it done, and such great groups of youth in both of these facilities that I'm grateful to be involved with and to be able to, to be a part of their lives and hope that I'm making some form of difference, So these guys were excellent. And that's essentially what I've been talking about, creating community and support. And that's the main thing with that, is to, be able to teach not just the youth, but all our relatives in general that are incarcerated, but most important of that being the youth, is that they have community. Some of these youth, and unfortunately the majority of them, they don't have community. They don't have positive people in their lives. And I don't say this from any negative manner. I say it from the knowledge of self. That's where I was, so I guess let me push pause real quick and say this, that I probably should have said earlier, is I'm previously incarcerated, and I started doing time when I was a juvenile. So I'm well acquainted with the juvenile system, and unfortunately even more acquainted with the prison system. And as yesterday, I'm out of prison for 7 years as of yesterday. So I take all the experiences that I've had, the good, the bad, the ugly, the failures, the successes, all of it, and do my best to try to share the parts of it I can with these guys, and the young ladies as well, that, I can give you prime examples all day of how not to do something, you know what I'm saying? And all I've got to do is try to catch even one little moment to show you a better way of doing something and hope it catches, and that's with the hopes that myself, when I was younger, there was nobody there to do that. The community, unfortunately, that I was involved around was, they taught you guns, drugs, and violence. They didn't bring you ceremony, culture, and healing. And that's what we're about here with creating community and support. It's bringing that medicine to them where they are, no matter what it looks like. Alley-oop.
Thank you. Let me just dunk it. So now that we've had an opportunity to hear introduction about the organization that Jeremy is with, we're going to hear a little bit about Echo Glen. Most of you all are probably really, really familiar. But for those of you who are not, Echo Glen is a post-adjudication confinement center. And so it has the name Echo Glen Children's Center. And I will tell you, from engaging with volunteers and folks in the community who want to come work with our youth, that name can be really misleading sometimes to some folks. They're not quite sure what they're getting into. And so sometimes I think it's important just to set that context not to be derogatory at all to our kids, but just to sort of set the framework for the kind of spot that we're talking about and the kind of young people that we're serving here. You know, these are not, you know, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. We are serving mostly young people from the ages of 12 all the way till we have some young ladies that are going on to serve significant DOC sentences after they're done here. So this campus has been here as it stands physically since 1967. We have always been a co-ed facility, and we are, you know, within the continuum of the juvenile justice system. There are only 2 institutions in Washington state that confine young people. There used to be more. There's 2 maximum medium type facilities. So that's ourself. And then you heard Jeremy talking about Green Hill. The major difference, if I was to speak about how they're kind of different, is here at Echo Glen, we house the younger boys. So we have boys, in my time, I think we've had as young as at 11. I've heard maybe previously there was younger, but we have from 11 all the way up until right around 17, 17 and a half. And if their sentence is further than that, then they will transfer to Green Hill, who captures that sort of 17 and a half to 25 age gap or age span. And the exception to that, of course, is the young ladies. So we are the only facility that serves the young ladies in that way. And so we do have some girls here, or we have girls here in the full age span of probably 12 all the way up to potentially 24. Or 25, I should say, is the max. But and so I think there is a really wide spectrum of young people who their needs are all really different. And not only their gender needs, their, of course, cultural needs, their spiritual needs, but also just the needs that they encounter due to the length of their time with us. So we have young people all the way from 45 days is our minimum length of confinement. So once a young person is adjudicated into JR or DCYF, they have to spend a minimum of 45 days with us. And then hopefully we're kind of getting them out into community facilities or sort of the next stop on their continuum if they are eligible. And that is dependent on their own individual sentencing and their own individual sort of situation due to whatever brought them here. We are serving young people in a variety of ways. And unfortunately, I would say like the unifying experience for most of our young folks is trauma. And, you know, I'm sure we've all heard about trauma-informed care and trauma-informed practices, but trauma seems to be sort of the unifying condition for most young folks that are here and at Green Hill. And this can be like community trauma from either like living in impoverished communities or in dangerous communities or gang impacted communities. And then also like interpersonal trauma, you know, that is put upon them by a specific person. And not only is this trauma like to our young people, but also extending out to sort of their family at large. And, you know, throughout our time hoping to serve young people and figuring out ways to best accommodate everybody, one thing that we have definitely learned is that cultural connection can heal some of the physical wounds of trauma. And so how do we go about like incorporating those opportunities and bringing those, that access to our young people? And it's a bigger question. It's a huge undertaking and trying to figure out like, how do we go about best doing that for the wide spectrum of young people that we have? And really just so fortunate to have, you know, the opportunity to work alongside other organizations and other providers that are doing that work and that are able to sort of serve our young people in a way that us as staff are not able to serve our young people always. You know, we strive to serve in the modalities that we are best in, and then we strive to find the best connections for the modalities that we are not, or that we're incapable of serving from, or that wouldn't be appropriate for us. So that's where community partnership comes into play so greatly for us. And so I think that it is really important for us to kind of be continuously seeking out those opportunities to build relationships with folks in the community, with other providers that are doing similar work, so that we can get the most varied array of services and opportunities for our young folks. We know that connecting to culture can help heal trauma, that it can also help people process grief. It can change historical narratives. It provides a safe space. You could share experiences without having to explain as much, because you are among folks that understand and that you are connected with. And so we really think that the more ways that we could seek out to provide this sort of healing, or the pathway to do so for our youth, the better that they will be long term, and the more that they heal their trauma and seek out ways to be able to do so, more so than just traditional like talk therapy, but really kind of seeking out those more holistic ways of looking at what's going on within them and how to access ways to heal those things. So a little bit more about some of the work that Jeremy and I are doing together, but what we are offering young people, and what young people have an opportunity to participate in every month, is learning the history of Indigenous movements and other things that are like applicable to historical events, beading and cultural crafts, and ceremony protocol. These are things that are offered twice a month. And then there are some like specialized events and other things that are out of the typical rotation. Jeremy, do you want to talk a little bit more about what some of these things might look like?
Jeremy's on mute.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, dang, I was on a good one too, you guys.
It looked very interesting.
I was with you.
My bad, guys. But what I was saying was, to explain about that is to just touch back on some things that we've already talked about a little bit, and mostly the one that Honey Herman just spoke about, and that's the trauma. And in our communities, you hear the phrase intergenerational trauma. It's very widely spoken about now, and the realization, or at least the admittance of its existence, is finally taking place in communities, if you will. And some of the things that we do is to try to heal that, and culture in itself that's one of the most healing things that we have as a people. It's just to get back in touch with our culture, to be reconnected to the communities, and to be reawakened inside through ceremony of who we are, and that's some of the things, just as small and basic as coming in and going over some beading, teaching some stitches, and getting them centered and acquainted with their culture in those manners. I mean, if any of you are beaders, I don't know, but I'll say I try to be. And, I'm just kidding. I'm filthy, you guys. But, beading it centers you. Some people like to think about meditative, or they try these other things that get them in a relaxed state. To me, it is beading. I can get lost in that of what I'm doing. But at the same time, I'm doing things that are culturally relevant, and the items that I'm making are usually to gift away for someone else's regalia. So those are the things that we're teaching these guys, and these young ladies, is to get in touch with that and to find a way to become centered, become calm, and then allow yourself to heal. And the ways of doing this, again, that I have found effective is through beading and through ceremony, So we have an inipi there, and we conduct sweats. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sweat Lodge, you know, an inipi ceremony. But that's another way to become grounded, a little bit of renewal, let things go and come out refreshed and renewed. And we're teaching them that. And you heard me talk about, you know, AIM earlier. I'll say it, that's, if you guys is unfamiliar, that's the American Indian movement, you know, and this is something that I'm deeply involved in, as well as, you know, other members of my community. And it's all about giving back to the community and helping, you know, but it brings in to play all of the histories of how it got to be where they are, you know, and I try to talk about that, you know, and the fact that we have the ability to have ceremony with, you know, my mother, when she was a child, it was still considered illegal, you know. So these are relatively new things that were allowed, or not new things, but new abilities that we're once again allowed to have. So it's reawakening the community, and it's reawakening ourselves. By doing so, we're finding ways to shed off some of that trauma, you know. And again, that's one of the beautiful things about having some lived experience, and a grateful thing that I have with Honey Herman. If you guys have had an opportunity off screen and off script to talk with Honey, that's real people, you know, that's solid, all the way 10 toes into the earth, rooted based human being. So I feel that having her as a counterpart, we're actually doing real work. You know, we're pushing forward in a productive way that's might not always be textbook, but it's reality based. You know, you can't teach a way to heal trauma, and you can't attempt to try to comprehend or understand someone's trauma. I'm sorry, but if you've never had trauma, you know, and these are realities. So I don't know if I went off script there or not, but that's where I was.
Good.
All right.
You are good. And I want to also say too, like, you know, you could probably tell by sort of the banter between us that we have really, over the last almost 2 years of working together, has sort of developed a really close working relationship. I think that there is a lot of grace and a lot of, you know, like authenticism that has to take place when you're talking about um, bridging between community work and work inside of an institution. You know, there are things that happen all the time inside of an institutional setting, which, while they are necessary, when you think about it through the lens of like safety and security for not only like young folks, but also our staff, they also create barriers for folks that want to come in from the community sometimes. And it's not an intentional barrier, but it's just them sort of upgrading systems and policies to be more in alignment with what they're hoping for. But it does trickle down and impact our folks that come in to serve our youth. And so just a quick example of that: in February, we had a huge policy update that sort of required me and everybody on our campus that works with folks from the outside to take another look at what they're able to bring in. And as you can imagine, especially if you're talking about for ceremonial practices, like, you know, there are things that we keep on campus, and there are things that are permitted to come in that are absolutely not allowed on campus. And so that whole list of things had to be recertified, and we had to find different ways of storing things. And there was a ton of work that had to be done, not only just between, you know, campus, but also just between Jeremy and I, to kind of figure out, like, are we, you know, documenting this the right way? Are we capturing the right intentionality behind what we're asking for? And sort of creating this ease of communication in a partnership, because it's acknowledged and understood that it's not me, or it's not even really Echo Glen that's trying to get in the way of anything, is trying to figure out, well, like, this is the circumstances that we've been handed in which to serve young people. And how do we kind of sort through all this mess to figure out how do we get to the ultimate goal, which is to provide services for young people. Another caveat about that, and again, I don't know how much folks know about Echo Glen, but Echo Glen, like geographically, it's positioned right here in Snoqualmie. So we're sort of up the mountain ridge a little bit, and it's right at the intersection of Highway 18 and I-90. And way, way back in the day, in 1967, when this place was built, when you come and approach our gate, there's an access road that's about a mile long that cuts through forest and marshland. And back in the days when this was not a very developed community, there was not really any houses up here. This was just pretty much all wildlife and nature and forest. And so for all these years, they have not had the necessity of having to have a fence, because it was just assumed that young people would not want to track through the woods. And it was pretty, good enough to keep kids up here. And recently, in the last couple years, especially with some of the updates around the laws. So let me back it up too. I don't know if folks are aware, but there was a huge law change in 2019 called JR to 25. And basically that law permitted young people to stay in DCYF custody here at a JR facility, instead of 21 being the hard line that young people had to graduate onto DOC. There was a law change that allowed us to retain young people until they were 25. Well, a part of that is that we had to get our security sort of ramped up to match the expectation for what it means to house young folks who are actually DOC, well, I don't know how to properly terminology this. Folks that like inevitably will be transferred to DOC. We are required to have a certain amount of security around that. And so recently, like in the last year, we've began a fencing project. So by the end of next year, I think we will have a fence that fully secures our entire perimeter, which is a first for our entire campus. So staff are not used to that. Young people are not used to that. But one of the biggest impacts for Jeremy and I's work is we actually had to change the location of our ceremonial spot. And so we were sort of nestled in the tree cover out behind a soccer field out on campus. And it's really beautiful out there, but because of the trajectory of the new fence, it's going to cut clean through where we were. And so it's been really, really invaluable to have this sort of working relationship that we've developed, because we've had to really work closely together to communicate the needs and wants of our young people with our administration to make sure that we're able to have a say-so in the planning and execution of what this new space will look like. And kind of in step with what's going on right now, Jeremy was just up here on Monday and we had an opportunity to walk the campus together and kind of take a look at the new site. And so when we talk about like what's coming next, it's really the building and the expansion of creating a bigger area to serve our young people more effectively. I think that we were doing a beautiful job with what we had, but given the opportunity to start over, you could see that as sort of like a detriment, like, oh no, we're going to lose the space. But I think looking at it and being really hopeful and optimistic that we are going to build this new, bigger, broader vision for what it means to serve our young people. And so just really exciting to kind of think about what would be the possibilities around that. Speaking of that, these are some really, don't judge these. I didn't draw these. These are our these are our planning, our what do they call it? Capital projects rendering of the sort of new updated space. We're going to move it in a place that we have like closer and more immediate access to restrooms and water source and places to store things. And then we're actually going to build a privacy enclosure around it because we do have young ladies that are out there. And because we do have boys on campus, we want to create like a visual barrier just so young ladies feel totally comfortable and they don't feel as though people are maybe peering in at them. We're also, one of Jeremy's suggestions, and I actually got approval for it today, is that we're going to build an awning and a covering so that when young people, we are a snowy, rainy place up here, and building an awning and a covering so that when young people are sitting outside, you know, we're not having to like pop up tents and do these things. We're going to actually build young people something that's intentional and serves them and something that they can look forward to investing in and having for a long time. And I know Jeremy had some really great ideas too about other ways that we can seek to kind of expand on this idea and kind of slowly take over this little field that we've staked our claim on. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Honey. And that is great news. I'm so happy to hear that you got them to agree to a covered space. You know, again, it is not only is it Western Washington, but y'all is right there at the pass. So
Yes.
you're getting hit with the elements pretty tough. So to have a covered space, well, we're there holding space, if you will, is beautiful. So thank you very much for that. And you know, like Honey was saying, we did a walkabout. You know, the place that we were originally located in, it's off the beaten path and it's kind of tucked away in the cut in the trees, and it was a very nice place, you know. But again, with given the opportunity to relook at things and with the ability to say, you know, hey, what about this idea and that idea? A lot of fresh eyes and fresh minds are on this right now. So it's a beautiful opportunity to be able to, I just say it, to capitalize on the situation, you know, and there it is. You know, we've got the ability to get a new spot. Let's go for it. And the area, that little drawing, great job, but it does no justice to the space. You know, it is a very nice lawn area, you know, nice grass. And if you've done a walkabout on the campus out there, there's little concrete pathways and they go this way, that way, and they intersect. And this is one of those earth patches of lawn that's between all those pathways. So it has the ability of being its own space, you know, and that's what she was talking about, is putting a little fence around it with, you know, just some privacy slats, you know, because it's, when we're out there, I know myself, you know, I don't like other things to distract me from what's at hand, you know, and I know with young people, it's even more easier to become distracted. So with having those things in place, one, it'll minimize distraction, and two, you know, young men and young women, it's always going to be, you know, nature and life is what it is, you know, and I don't ever want any young ladies that are out there with us in a ceremonial way to feel like they're, you know, being gawked at by the 10 guys that are walking by or any of that, you know. So to have that in play too is wonderful, you know. But this space, it's so spacious out there to where we were walking around it and I was like, oh yeah, we could put this here, we could probably put that over there. And it turned into the idea of, you know, beautification, you know, all the things that we could do to beautify that space to where it wouldn't just be held as somewhere that we could get together and teach drumming or get together and conduct ceremony, but yet a space that they could come to on different times as well, you know, to cater to it and care for it. And one of the things that I've been trying to help implement across Department of Corrections is traditional medicine gardens, you know, so that some of the groups can be a little self-sustainable with growing their own medicines, you know, and for those that aren't familiar with that, you know, herbs, if you will, you know, but traditional. And to be able to have that, not only would it, again, promote self-sustainability, but it would also give the youth that pride and ownership of being able to be the ones that go out there and care for that, you know. And then when it's time to harvest that, we teach them to do it in a good way with a good heart. And then when they need to smudge and to conduct ceremony, again, now final step being taken with these medicines, we know from seed to smoke, if you will, the lifespan and life journey of that medicine was all done in a good way with intention, you know. So that's a beautiful thing. And the flip side of it, for administration and anybody else, you know, it's an aesthetic purposes, it's beautiful. It will look so wonderful and so beautiful once we finish, you know, a good solid game plan on how to do it. Because we're not just gonna go by and plant some things. You know, we're gonna do this right, and we're gonna make it look fabulous. So really looking forward to that. And I'm so excited to hear about the awning. I'm stuck on that right now. Thank you. That is great.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stand out there in the rain. I didn't want to stand in the rain. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So we are kind of done with what we had brought to you all to present and speak about today. And so I know I've seen some stuff going on in the chat, but I haven't been really actively paying attention to it. So I don't know if those were any direct questions. Maybe we could circle back on, or if folks
Yeah,
have any.
honey, I've got them collected. There's a few, actually 2 statements and a question.
Okay.
So Brandy, statement, it would be interesting to have a presentation on intergenerational trauma. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that, or if we all just kind of nod in agreement.
Invite me. Yes, I love it. I can't wait to see what somebody puts together.
Stanley said, I believe it would be powerful to get tribal newsletters sent to both institutions so they can stay informed about changes across Indian country because inside time seems to stand still. Children are growing, loved ones passing, and communities evolving, but inside every day is the same. Then Anthony has a question. What is the best way for a non-Native person outside the community to support the culture for Native families and children in care?
That's a Jeremy question.
Yeah, I'll jump on the grenade on that one. And, you know, that we could probably get pretty deep on the response to that, but I'll try to keep it just surfaced. You know, the main thing is understanding, you know, and on understanding of a culture that you may not be familiar with, and the understanding that not your ways aren't everybody's ways. Everybody can have their own ways. And I think society's kind of taken a turn lately to where acceptance is becoming easier. And I'm grateful of that, you know. But as far as how to help, donations, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to go ahead and dive right in on that and say donations, you know. All these things that we're talking about, beating and making drums and, you know, things of these nature, these items have to come from somewhere. You know, and I'm not just asking non-natives. I'm saying, hey, everybody in this phone call, you know, let's get some donations, you know, not for myself, but for the youth, you know, and it's instrumental to the work that we do, you know. And for people that are not familiar with it, if you're ever interested, there's an open invitation, you know, to anyone that's involved in DCYF. I'm sure you would have easy enough access to come in for a day. But the things that I do, it's not restrictive, you know, the sessions and the teachings, they're not restrictive, you know. So anyone that's willing to come in a good way with an open mind, I'm willing to share, you know, and help you get an understanding of not just what we're doing, but who we are and why we're doing it.
That's a great segue. Stanley asked, are you in need of products, pelts, hides, beads, sinew, etc.? How can people or tribes donate to your program?
Most definitely. We are always in need of supplies. You know, there's never a shortage of things to do, just people to do it and items to get it done with, you know. So with that, there's 2 ways of doing it. I'm sure the one way is any supplies that I receive at Unkitawa, I redistribute back into the facilities. You know, outside of that, I don't know if Echo Glen has its own personal, you know, or centralized process in place. That would be a a honey question, but I know that being able to work with honey, I would say that anything that was to get donated to Unkitawa, with a conversation with honey, we could ensure that it gets to the proper location and proper people in need of it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you know, because you already have the relationship with us, you know, and we already have an approval with you, like, of course, anything that you brought in would be fine, you know, because it's going to go through the proper channels. But if something was donated directly to us for the purposes of them specifically, we would definitely retain it and make sure that it made it specifically to them for the youth, for the young folks that are in our group. And so either or, I would say, would be the best way. And I did go ahead and put both Jeremy and I's emails in the chat for everybody, just in case folks want to reach out or have additional questions after this presentation.
Thank you, Honey and Jeremy, for taking the time to come here today and share your partnership and the work that you're doing. It is so powerful to hear this work happening, and we just want to raise our hands up to you and the work that you are doing with our adolescents there, and to continue to reach out and see how we can collaborate in our future. So thank you both so much. We appreciate
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. And I look forward to many more conversations in the future. And honey, I'm going to talk to you later.